My fiancé posted, "Sometimes you outgrow people," right after I lost my job. I commented, "Truth." Then I got hired at double my salary and started dating my new boss. When she saw us together at the gala, her DMs weren't about closure. They were about regret that we were supposed to get married in 6 months. We'd been together almost 4 years, built a life, built plans, built something that, at least to me, felt unshakable. Her name was Sophie, the kind of woman who could make any room tilt toward her without even trying. Smart, ambitious, well-spoken. A communications director at a mid-sized PR firm, always on, always posting quotes about growth and boundaries. I used to admire that about her drive, until I realized it was the same thing that made her incapable of standing still when someone else stumbled. 3 months ago, I got laid off. Not fired, laid off. Budget cuts. Whole department gone. It sucked, obviously, but I wasn't panicking. I had savings, a good reputation, and a plan. Sophie seemed supportive at first. She said all the right things. "You'll land on your feet. You're too talented to stay down." But I could tell, even then, that she didn't like the optics of it. Her tone shifted. She started phrasing things like we were two brands in a merger. "Maybe you can take this time to reevaluate your goals. You've always been more stable than ambitious. You'll find something better, but try not to rush into anything small." Small. That was the word that stuck. A week later, she went to dinner with her coworkers. When she came back, she was quiet, detached. Something felt off. Then, 2 days later, I saw her post. A soft-lit mirror selfie, captioned, "Sometimes you outgrow people who stay comfortable." Hashtag, hashtag growth, hashtag alignment, hashtag chapter 2. I remember just staring at it for a full minute, trying to decide if she realized how transparent she was being. The comments were predictable. "Preach. You're glowing. The evolution is real." So I commented, simply, "Truth." She deleted the post 20 minutes later. She tried to act normal that night. Asked about dinner. Asked about my day. I answered politely, made small talk, and when she went to bed, I started packing. Half an hour later, all my things were in the car. I left the ring on the kitchen counter with a note. "I hope you find people who grow as fast as your ego." And that was it. No scene. No argument. No closure text. Just the quiet end of a relationship that had started as a partnership and ended as a PR problem. For the next few weeks, I focused on getting my footing back. I polished my resume, reached out to contacts, and spent mornings applying, afternoons interviewing. Within a month, I landed something, and not just something. A senior operations position at a logistics tech firm. Double my old salary. Flexible hours. New city. A clean slate. The first person I met on my first day was Amelia, my new director. Sharp. Focused. Unapologetically direct. She didn't talk about alignment or manifesting growth. She talked about systems, deliverables, measurable outcomes. It was refreshing, being around someone who didn't dress ambition in philosophy. We worked closely, built rapport. She challenged me, respected me, and, eventually, liked me. And when she invited me to dinner one night to debrief the week, I said yes. That dinner turned into another, then another, then, quietly, effortlessly, into something real. A few months later, she was promoted to VP of Operations. We kept our relationship discreet, professional, not because we had to hide, but because it felt grounded, private, adult. Then came the company gala, black tie, full attendance, photographers, investors, the whole corporate performance. Amelia and I arrived together. Not as a secret, not as a statement. Just together. Somewhere between speeches and champagne, I noticed Sophie across the room. She was there with a client from her PR firm, networking. Of course. The look on her face when she saw me, hand in hand with the woman who now signed her company's contracts, was indescribable. Not rage, not heartbreak, just realization. That quiet, devastating click of "I miscalculated." I didn't approach her, didn't gloat, didn't even make eye contact for long. I just turned back to Amelia, smiled, and carried on with my night. Because sometimes silence isn't avoidance, it's professionalism. Later that night, as Amelia and I left, my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. "So that's your new boss?" Then, a minute later, "You really moved on fast." And finally, "I miss when you were just safe." I didn't reply. I just locked my phone, looked at Amelia, and said, "Let's go home." The first DM came at 1:24 a.m., 2 nights after the gala. Short, passive-aggressive. You didn't have to embarrass me like that. I didn't respond, because I hadn't embarrassed her. She'd done that herself, by assuming I'd always stay behind her spotlight. 2 days later, I didn't realize you were seeing her. People were talking. Then, a few hours later, you could have at least told me. Told her what? That I'd built a life after she broadcasted my low point like it was a self-help caption? That I'd found a partner who respected quiet more than hashtags? No, she didn't deserve my explanation. The messages kept coming. Apologies disguised as logic. Regret dressed up as insight. You know, I didn't mean that post about you. It was about me evolving. You always took things too literally. We were good, Ethan. You can't just delete history. Actually, I could. And I had. By the fifth message, she switched tone. Flirty. Familiar. Desperate in the way people get when they realize the person they took for granted stopped orbiting them. I still think about you sometimes. I miss how stable you were. You grounded me. I didn't reply. Then came the photo. A selfie. Same mirror, same soft lighting, same expression she used in this "sometimes you outgrow people" post. Caption. Full circle. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I archived the chat. That was the first time I truly understood how detachment feels. Not angry, not vindictive. Just immune. A week later, I mentioned it to Amelia. Not because I wanted to stir drama. I just believe in transparency. We were having dinner at her place, and I said, my ex reached out after the gala. Multiple times. She raised an eyebrow, calm but firm. Do I need to worry? Not at all. I haven't replied once. Good. Because I didn't hire you for your past. I kept you for your integrity. Then she smiled. That subtle, self-assured smile she gives when she knows she's made her point. And that was it. Conversation over. No jealousy. No insecurity. Just trust. Something I hadn't realized I'd been missing until I saw how effortless it could be. Meanwhile, Sophie didn't stop. The messages slowed down, then spiked again. At one point, she sent a screenshot of a job listing at my company. Thought about applying, she wrote. Wouldn't that be funny? No, it wouldn't. I didn't answer. But HR got a heads up that same day. Not because I was afraid, but because I've learned that boundaries only work when you maintain them proactively. The next week, HR forwarded me an application. Sophie had actually applied. No cover letter, just her resume and a portfolio link full of motivational taglines about authentic communication. It was surreal, like she was trying to crawl back into relevance, not into me. I didn't need to do anything. Amelia handled it. She called me into her office the next morning. I saw her name, she said. We won't be moving forward. Thank you. You don't have to thank me, Amelia said. Some people confuse access with entitlement. She'll learn. Then, after a pause. By the way, that full circle caption? She deleted it. Guess the circle closed itself. We both laughed quietly. The last message from Sophie came 2 weeks later. No drama. No manipulation. Just one line. I thought outgrowing you would feel like freedom. It feels like missing stability I didn't deserve. I didn't respond. I didn't block her either. I just muted the chat and let it fade, a monument to silence. Because sometimes closure isn't conversation. It's the absence of one. Now, months later, my life looks nothing like it did back then. New role, new city, new peace. I don't think about her much. When I do, it's like remembering a marketing campaign I once believed in before I learned how much it cost. Amelia and I are still together, quietly, privately, successfully. She challenges me in all the right ways. No theatrics, no tests, just two adults who like calm more than chaos. Sometimes, I still see Sophie's old quote reposted online. Sometimes you outgrow people who stay comfortable. And every time I think, you didn't outgrow me. You outgrew your own illusion. I just stopped holding it up for you. Update 1. It's been a little over a year since the gala, the DMs, the silence. I don't think about Sophie often anymore. And when I do, it's like remembering a language I used to speak but no longer need. Amelia and I moved in together last spring. Different apartment, different pace of life. She's still my boss, technically, but our world outside work feels so separate and easy that we barely notice. Some mornings, she reads investor reports while I make coffee. Other mornings, I cook breakfast while she tells me stories about her team. It's not flashy. It's not cinematic. But it's stable. And I've learned that stability isn't the opposite of excitement. It's what makes excitement sustainable. Last week, I got an email. No subject line, no signature, just a familiar address buried under a new domain. It was from Sophie. Hi, Ethan. I hope you're well. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted to thank you. I've spent the last year learning how to stop performing. Therapy, career change, all of it. I even deleted my old social media. Turns out growth doesn't have to be public. I saw an article about your company and realized you finally have what you always deserved. I wasn't ready to understand it then. For what it's worth, I'm glad you didn't become bitter because of me. I would have understood if you did. Take care. Sophie. I read it twice. Then once more, just to be sure I was really reading it right. Not an apology masked as justification, not a guilt trip wrapped in nostalgia. Just acknowledgement. For a long time, I thought closure meant hearing the words, I'm sorry. Now I know it's something simpler, not needing to correct the record anymore. I didn't reply, not out of coldness, out of completeness. Some things don't require another word. That evening, I told Amelia about it. She didn't flinch, didn't interrogate, didn't make a scene. She just nodded and said, then it sounds like everyone finally grew up. And that was that. A week later, I found an old photo while cleaning, one of Sophie and me at my previous job's holiday party years ago. We looked happy, naive, but happy. I didn't feel pain. I didn't even feel irony. Just gratitude that I survived that version of love without losing the version of myself that still believed in it. So I put the photo in an envelope, wrote full circle on it, and tucked it into the back of a drawer. Not to remember, but to remind myself that sometimes the best revenge is genuine peace. Now, when people ask about my ex, I just smile and say, she taught me that some people confuse comfort with complacency. But comfort, in the right hands, is where real growth begins. And Amelia always adds, half jokingly, you're the calmest man in every room I walk into. I think that's your superpower. Maybe she's right. Maybe I just stopped needing storms to prove I could survive them. Final line. She once said I was too comfortable. Turns out, comfort built everything she thought she was chasing. Final update that it's been 3 years since that night at the gala. Long enough that her name doesn't sting anymore. It just lands somewhere quiet in memory, like a chapter heading in a book I finished and shelved. I'm 37 now, still with Amelia. We got engaged last winter. Small ceremony planned, no social media announcements, no hashtags. Just us, a few friends, and the kind of peace I once mistook for boredom when I was younger. Turns out, peace takes more courage to sustain than chaos ever did. We moved into a house outside the city, near a park, near the ocean. I built a home office with too many plants. She calls it my thinking greenhouse. Sometimes I look around and realize, this is what Too Safe built. No fireworks, no crash, just stability that doesn't apologize for existing. A few weeks ago, something unexpected happened. I was at a conference, giving a presentation about logistics and crisis recovery systems. Ironic, right? When I heard someone say my name afterward, it was Sophie. She looked good, not filtered, not postured, just human. Older, softer, grounded in a way she never used to be. We talked briefly. Polite, professional, kind. She told me she was managing community outreach for a nonprofit now. She smiled and said, I guess I finally learned what growth actually means. Looks like it suits you, I said. She nodded. You look happy. I am. There was a pause. Not awkward, just final. Like two people who'd both stopped needing to rewrite the past. Then she said something that stuck with me. I thought being comfortable meant I was standing still. But I was wrong. It just meant I didn't know how to rest. I smiled. We were both learning, Sophie. Just on different timelines. She laughed softly. Guess so. And then she was gone. On the flight home, I looked out the window and realized. I didn't feel vindicated. Didn't feel proud. Just peaceful. Not because she'd changed, but because I no longer needed her to. Now, when people ask me what happened between us, I tell them this. She once posted, sometimes you outgrow people. She was right. We did outgrow each other. We just grew in opposite directions. She found meaning in rebuilding. I found peace in staying still long enough to build something real. And maybe that's what growing up really is, realizing not every ending is a loss. A few nights ago, as Amelia and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she asked what I'd tell my younger self if I could. I thought for a while, then said, don't confuse stillness with stagnation. Sometimes the safest choice is just the one that won't collapse when everything else does. She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder, and said, "You're still the calmest person I know." "No," I said quietly. "Just finally in the right storm." Final line. She left to chase excitement. I stayed and built peace. Turns out, peace lasts longer.